The invitation he never expected, Keanu Reeves walked alone through the hallway of the old film studio. It was quiet, and the wooden floors creaked beneath his boots. Outside, the rain tapped gently against the windows like a whisper trying to speak. He had received the invitation just 2 days ago, tucked inside a plain white envelope that had no sender name on it. It wasn't the envelope that had shocked him. It was what was written inside. Screening invite, Ana de Armas's new film. Reserved seat for Keanu Reeves. His breath had caught for a moment. Not because he didn't know her, but because they hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years. Not after the last project. Not after the headlines. Not after the moment she walked out of his trailer, eyes full of silent disappointment, and said, "Maybe you don't see it, but this matters to me." And she was gone. They had worked on 3 films together. Everyone called them magical on screen. Some even whispered they were close off screen too. But no one really knew what happened between them. Not even Keanu fully understood. Yet now, here he was, walking toward a private screening of her most personal work. The note had ended with one simple line. "This is not about the movie. Please come." As he reached the door, he paused. The EVI room behind it was dark except for the glow of a single projector light. An assistant greeted him quietly. "Mr. Reeves, she requested that you watch alone." He nodded. No words were needed. Inside, the small theater was empty. A single seat in the center was marked with his name. He sat down slowly, his hands resting on his lap, uncertain of what he was about to see. The screen flickered to life. The film opened with a beach. Not just any beach. The beach they had once visited together on a break from filming. A quiet spot in Portugal. It was their secret place. No cameras, no makeup, no pressure. On screen, Ana played a character named Lucia, a struggling actress trying to break through in Hollywood. The story was raw, emotional, painful. It showed her sleeping in cars, crying in public bathrooms, getting rejected by casting agents. It didn't feel like acting. It felt like a confession. Keanu sat still, watching with a growing tightness in his chest. Then came the scene that made his heart stop. Lucia stood in front of a mirror, dressed in a faded black hoodie. The same, one Keanu had once given Ana on a cold night in New York. She looked into the mirror and whispered, "You said you believed in me, but you never said it when it mattered." Keanu's hands curled into fists on his lap. The movie wasn't just a film. It was a message. It was their story, wrapped in fiction. As the film reached its final act, Lucia stood on stage, holding her first award. Not a big one. Not an Oscar. Something small. Something pure. The kind of award given by a local indie festival that truly believed in stories. She looked into the camera, and for a second, Keanu could swear she was looking straight at him. "To the one who never knew he was my fire," she said. "Thank you for lighting my path. Even if you didn't stay to walk it with me." Keanu's throat tightened, his vision blurred. The screen faded to black. No credits. No applause. No audience. Just silence. And a single card appeared. "If you're watching this, I still believe." "In the fire." He sat frozen. A moment passed. Then another. Finally, he stood. Quietly. Slowly. And left the room. Outside the theater, the assistant waited, her expression calm. She handed him a small envelope. No words, no explanation. Just another message. Inside, it was a Polaroid photo, old, slightly bent. It was of Ana and Keanu, both laughing, soaked from rain, back when they were just 2 dreamers in the middle of a muddy shoot. On the back, she had written, "My best scenes were never filmed." Keanu pressed the photo to his chest and exhaled, deeply. For the first time in years, he felt something he had forgotten, regret, but also hope and something else, a question that refused to stay quiet. Was it too late? The message behind the silence. Keanu Reeves didn't go home that night. Instead, he walked through the empty streets of Los Angeles, letting the cold night air clear his mind. Traffic lights blinked in slow rhythm. The city was alive but distant, like a stranger pretending to know him. He held the Polaroid in his coat pocket. Every now and then, he'd reach in and touch it, as if making sure it hadn't disappeared. He kept hearing her voice in his head. "My best scenes were never filmed," and that line from the film. "Thank you for lighting my path, even if you didn't stay to walk it with me." He hadn't expected this. He thought he'd buried their story. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Fear that he had hurt someone he deeply cared for, not with anger, but with absence. And now Anna had told the whole world, without naming names, without blame, just truth. But that wasn't what haunted him most. It was the final line. "If you're watching this, I still believe in the fire." That didn't feel like closure. It felt like a beginning. The next morning, Keanu sat at his kitchen counter, staring at a cold cup of tea. He had barely slept. Instead, he kept playing back every moment with Anna, the late-night rehearsals, the long talks in trailers, the laughter between scenes, and the silence that followed after they finished their last film. He remembered the fight clearly now. It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, it was just disappointing. Anna had wanted to take a risk, a script that wasn't safe, something real, something she believed in. She had asked Keanu if he would do it with her. He had read the script and said, "It's good, but I don't think I'm the right one for it." She didn't say much that day, just nodded, and left. And from that moment on, something broke between them. But now, after watching her new film, he realized that script was the foundation of it. She had made it herself, directed it, funded it, and poured her pain into it. And somehow, she still believed in him. Keanu opened his laptop and searched for her name. Interviews, press, festival appearances. Critics calling it her boldest work yet. But she didn't speak much about the meaning behind it. She simply said, "It's personal." His heart thudded louder. He wasn't just a viewer. He was part of the story, and he couldn't pretend otherwise anymore. He picked up his phone and typed a message. Then erased it, typed again. Paused. Finally, he wrote, "I saw it, and I heard every word you didn't say out loud." But before he could hit send, something stopped him. What if it wasn't enough? What if words wouldn't fix what silence had? Ruined, his fingers hovered. He deleted the message. Instead, he drove. It was reckless, unplanned, desperate. But sometimes, the heart knows what the mind cannot. Anna lived in a quiet part of LA, tucked away behind a wall of vines and sun-kissed bricks. They had once spent a whole weekend there editing a short film together. He remembered the balcony with the wind chimes, the one where she used to sit barefoot, reading scripts aloud, asking him, "Do I sound honest?" He parked outside and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. Just as he opened the door, he noticed movement. The front gate opened. Anna stepped out, wearing a soft sweater and holding a steaming mug. She froze when she saw him. Keanu stood still. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then she smiled. A small, tired smile. "You came," she said. Keanu walked slowly toward her. "I didn't know if I should," he replied, voice low. "But you did," she said. He nodded. "I saw the film," he added. "I know." They stood in silence, and then he said what had weighed on him for 2 years. "I should have walked the path with you." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. "Maybe," she whispered. "But maybe you weren't ready." "Maybe I wasn't," he admitted. "But I am now." She looked down at the mug in her hands. You always said stories matter more than awards. I still believe that. Anna looked up, her voice trembling. Then help me tell the next one. This time, together. Keanu blinked. Not because of surprise, but because something inside him cracked open, and the fire she had spoken of finally lit again. I'd be honored, he said. And for the first time in years, they didn't need a script. They had found something better. Truth. A project with no masks. The days that followed were quiet, but not empty. Keanu and Anna met in small cafes. No cameras, no makeup, no rehearsals. Just the two of them, like old friends slowly rebuilding something delicate. At first they didn't talk about the past. They let silence speak for them. Sometimes Anna would bring an old notebook filled with scribbles. Other times, Keanu would carry faded printouts of scripts he never finished. They didn't say they were making a movie, but they were. Every quiet conversation, every unfinished sentence, every deep look. It was a scene waiting to be written. Want it to be real, Anna finally said one afternoon, staring at her coffee. Not perfect, not polished, just true. Keanu nodded. No heroes, no happy endings for the sake of it. Just people trying to be seen. She looked at him. You'd really do it with me, not as a favor, he replied, as a second chance. The script came together like a slow dance. They worked in her apartment, sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by pens and teacups. Sometimes they argued, not with anger, but with passion, because every word mattered. The story was simple. A man and a woman, both broken by their own silences, meet again years later, not for love, not for revenge, but for understanding. They named the characters James and Mia, but they both knew who the real story was about. One night, after hours of writing, Anna leaned her head against the couch and whispered, "People think you're always calm, always kind. They don't know the storms you hide." Keanu sat beside her, eyes soft. "And they think you're made of light. But they don't know how much you've had to burn just to stay warm." She smiled sadly. Maybe that's what this film is. Two storms learning how to dance. He didn't answer. He just reached out and gently took her hand. Not in romance, but in respect, in trust. The filming began 2 months later. No big studio, no giant crew, just a small team of artists who believed in the story. They shot in abandoned houses, sunlit alleys, and quiet diners. Places that felt forgotten, just like the characters in the story. Anna directed. Keanu acted. Sometimes he held the camera. Sometimes she set up the lights. They were everywhere. Not because they had to be, but because they wanted to be, and something strange happened. With each scene they filmed, something inside both of them began to heal. In one moment, James tells Mia, "I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because I was afraid I wasn't enough." Anna called cut, but no one moved. She stared at Keanu for a long time. "Did you mean that?" she asked softly. He nodded. "More than you." "No," and without another word they went back to filming. No retakes, no edits. Just truth. The final scene of the film took place on a rooftop. The sun was setting, the wind was cold, and both actors stood close, not to stay warm, but to stay present. Mia says to James, "Even if we never speak again, I want you to know you mattered." Keanu looked at Anna, and for a second, the line wasn't part of a script. He whispered back, "And you changed everything." The camera rolled, but no one could tell where acting ended and life began, because this time, there were no masks. After the last scene, the crew clapped quietly. Anna turned to Keanu. "We did it," she said, her voice shaking. "We did more than that," he replied. "We told our story, the way it was meant to be told." She looked down at the rooftop beneath her feet. Do you think anyone will understand it? He smiled gently. Maybe not everyone, but the ones who need it. They will. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes, and in that moment, they didn't need awards, or critics, or even an audience, because they had finally said what was left unsaid, and the silence between them was no longer a wall. It was a bridge. Whispers in the crowd. The film was done. Anna edited it herself. Long nights alone in her studio, frame by frame, breath by breath. She didn't want filters. No fancy transitions. She kept the pauses, the stumbles, the quiet looks. She said those were the most honest parts. Keanu would visit sometimes. He didn't speak much during editing. He would just sit nearby watching her work. Sometimes he brought soup. Sometimes he brought music. Sometimes he brought silence, the kind that helped her breathe. When she finally played him the full cut, they didn't watch it on a big screen, just a laptop on her kitchen table, the lights off, the rain tapping outside again, like it did the night he watched her last film. This time, neither of them cried. They just sat there, still and quiet. As the final scene faded to black, Anna turned to him. Should we show it to the world? Keanu didn't speak right away. Then he said gently, only if you're ready for them to know everything. She gave a small nod. Maybe it's time they did. A month later, the film had a name. The Things We Didn't Say. It wasn't pushed by a major studio. It didn't need to be. It found life in whispers, film festivals, underground screenings, word of mouth. People began talking, not loudly, not in headlines, but in long personal reviews, in blog posts, in letters. Audiences didn't call it brilliant. They called it true. This film didn't show me love. It showed me why I fear it. I saw myself in the silence between them. This movie reminded me of someone I lost, not through death, but through pride. Keanu read every message he could find. So did Anna, one evening. She called him after midnight. Her voice was shaking. Someone from Argentina wrote me a letter, she said. He said he watched the movie with his wife. They'd been separated for 3 years. After watching it, he went to her door the next day. They talked all night. They're trying again. Keanu closed his eyes and whispered, then we did the right thing. Then came the night they didn't expect, an invitation from a major international film festival, not for awards, but for closure. They were asked to present the film, not just screen it, but talk about it afterward. Anna hesitated. I told you I'm not good at talking about feelings in front of strangers. Neither am I, Keanu said with a small smile. But maybe this time, we don't need to explain it. Just stand beside it, she agreed. The night of the screening was surreal. Hundreds of people filled the theater. Some knew them as stars. Others only knew them through whispers. The room buzzed with curiosity. When the lights dimmed and the film began, Keanu sat in the back, watching the audience instead of the screen. He watched people lean forward during the silent moments. He saw tears wiped away quietly. He noticed a couple holding hands tighter during the rooftop scene. He didn't need to watch the film. He was watching what it did. After the final line, "And you changed everything." The room stayed still. No clapping. Not at first. Just breath. And then, slowly, applause began. Not loud, not forced. It felt like gratitude. Anna stood beside Keanu on the small stage afterward. She looked nervous, her fingers twitching slightly. A host asked, "This film feels incredibly personal. Was it based on real events?" Anna looked at Keanu. Keanu looked at the audience. Then he said, "It was based on real emotions, the kind you carry for years without knowing how to speak." Anna added softly, "It's not about one story. It's about what happens when people stop speaking. And how sometimes, if we're lucky, we find the courage to try again." Someone from the crowd stood up and asked, How did you know it was time to speak again? Keanu answered without thinking. When silence stopped feeling safe and started feeling like regret. The crowd went quiet again, and then someone stood, a woman near the front row. She raised a hand, not to ask a question, but to say something. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "Your story gave me the words I couldn't find." Anna's eyes filled with tears. Keanu bowed his head, not as a star, not as a guest, but as someone who had finally been understood. After the screening, they stepped out into the night. The sky was full of stars. Anna looked up. "Do you think we helped anyone?" Keanu smiled. "We helped each other, and that's how it begins." She nodded, then whispered, "Do you ever wonder what our story would have been like if we hadn't stopped talking back then?" He looked at her, his voice soft. "I think it would have looked a lot like this." She reached for his hand, not out of need, but out of peace. And together they walked on, not as two people trying to fix the past, but as two hearts brave enough to face the truth, even when it hurt. What healing really looks like. The days after the festival were quiet, but the silence no longer felt heavy. Anna and Keanu didn't rush into interviews. They didn't chase the press or try to explain the story again. The film was out now. It lived on its own. It had become more than just a project. It had become a mirror, and people all over the world were looking into it. Keanu spent his mornings walking. He found comfort in early hours, before the city woke up. Sometimes, he'd pass strangers who nodded at him, not with excitement, but with quiet recognition. Like they had seen a part of him they weren't meant to see, and respected him more because of it. One morning, a man stopped him near a park bench. "You don't know me," the man said softly. "But that film, your words helped me call my brother after 6 years." Keanu placed a hand on the man's shoulder. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Sometimes healing doesn't sound like noise. It sounds like forgiveness. Anna had her own journey. One evening, she sat in the back of a small theater where her film was being shown. She didn't tell anyone she was there. She just wanted to see how people reacted when they didn't know she was watching. A young woman in the row ahead of her cried quietly through the rooftop scene. The man beside her gently held her hand and wiped away her tears. After the film ended, the woman turned to him and whispered, "I think I understand now why you left. I never let you speak." Anna closed her eyes, letting those words sink into her chest. The story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to anyone who had ever walked away, or stayed silent, or found their way back. A few weeks later, Anna invited Keanu to a small beach house. "Outside the city, just us," she said over the phone. "No cameras, no talk about films, just people." He arrived on a Friday evening, the sun painting the sky orange and pink. The air smelled like salt and pine. Waves crashed gently nearby like an old song humming in the background. Anna opened the door barefoot, smiling in that soft, tired way she had when she was truly at peace. They spent the evening sitting on the deck, watching the tide come and go. No scripts, no plans, just stories. "Remember that time in Spain?" Anna asked, laughing. "You tried to order coffee and asked the waiter for a very proud elephant instead?" Keanu chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "I didn't speak Spanish, okay?" "You do now. A little," he grinned, "but still afraid of elephants." They laughed, and the sound felt warm, like fire after rain. Then came the quiet again. Anna looked out over the sea. "Keanu, do you think we missed our moment?" He thought about it. Then he shook his head. "No," he said. "I think we were just waiting to become the kind of people who could handle something real." She looked at him, eyes full of softness. "And now? Now, I think we finally see each other." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and for a long time they watched the waves roll in. Later that night, Anna brought out an old notebook. "I've been writing something," she said. "Not a film, just thoughts, real ones. I wrote about you, about me, about the space between us." Keanu listened, hands folded on his lap. She opened the notebook and read aloud. He never shouted, never slammed a door, never begged me to stay. But his silence had weight, and I carried it like a stone across my heart. But now I know. Silence is not always absence. Sometimes it's just a person trying to find their way back to words. Her voice trembled. Keanu reached out and gently closed the notebook. He didn't say anything. He simply looked at her and nodded, because he had heard every word, and more importantly, he understood. The next morning, they walked along the shore as the sun rose. No shoes, no cameras, no fear. Anna picked up a smooth stone and handed it to him. "Take it," she smiled. "It's not heavy." He looked down at the stone and saw something written on it, small and faint. "I forgive you." He swallowed hard, then closed his hand around it. "Thank you," he whispered. Anna looked at him and said gently, "Now we can move forward." He nodded, but then she added with a small, hopeful smile, "Maybe not separately." Keanu smiled too, not because of what she said, but because, for the first time in a long time, he believed it might be true. And this time, they weren't walking away. They were walking toward something. Together. The scene that never fades, weeks passed. The film had stopped trending. The award season came and went. New headlines replaced the old ones. But some stories, they don't fade when the lights go out. They keep living in the quiet spaces, in shared looks, handwritten notes, and long walks without answers. Keanu and Anna didn't rush to the next big thing. They didn't sign a new project. They didn't post photos or give interviews. Instead, they chose something most people in their world never did. Stillness. They chose to be present, to heal not in front of the world, but beside each other. One morning, Anna knocked on Keanu's door. She didn't call first. She just showed up, holding a small wrapped box and 2 cups of coffee. Keanu opened the door, still in his hoodie, hair messy, surprised. "What's this?" he asked, smiling. "Something I've been saving," she said, walking past him like she owned the place. They sat on the balcony. She handed him the box. He unwrapped it slowly, carefully, like it was fragile. Inside was a copy of their film's first script draft, the one they scribbled together on her kitchen floor. But something was different. Handwritten notes covered the margins, memories, jokes, secrets they had never spoken aloud. At the very bottom of the last page, she had written, "You do were the scene I didn't know I was writing." Keanu stared at it, then turned to her. "I thought you said you weren't good at talking about feelings." She shrugged. "I lied," he laughed. "I think I knew." They sat in silence for a moment, the wind brushing softly around them. Then, Keanu spoke, slow and thoughtful. "Anna, do you ever feel like we met in the wrong lifetime?" She looked at him, eyes warm. "I used to. And now? Now I think we met exactly when we needed to. Not when we were ready, but when we were meant to." Keanu's chest felt full, not with regret, but with peace. That weekend, they returned to the beach house. This time, it felt different. Not like a getaway, not like a second chance, but like a home. They painted the walls. Not perfectly, just with colors that felt right. They cooked meals that burned sometimes. They read books and left them unfinished. They wrote new scenes, but not for a movie, just for fun. They weren't trying to fix anything. They were just living, freely, honestly, gently. One night, while sitting around a small fire outside, Anna asked, "Do you think love always looks like this?" Keanu thought about it, then answered, I think real love looks like a safe place to land, after you've flown too close to the sun. She smiled, not because it was poetic, but because it was true. Months later, the world started asking again. Fans, studios, reporters, they all wanted to know, will Keanu and Anna work together again? The answer was simple. They never stopped. Because what they built wasn't just a film. It was a story behind the scenes. A love that didn't need to be shouted. A connection that didn't need a label. Something deeper than what the screen could ever show. They didn't announce it. They didn't post about it. They just lived it. Moment by moment. Quietly, faithfully, bravely. Years later, long after the movie had become a quiet classic, a young director asked Keanu in an interview, "What's the most important scene you've ever filmed?" Keanu smiled gently and replied, "The one where she forgave me." The interviewer paused. "Was that in the movie?" Keanu looked away, eyes soft. "No," he said. "It was on a beach. No cameras. Just her and the sound of the ocean." "And did she say the words out loud?" Keanu shook his head. She didn't need to. And in that silence, everyone listening understood. The greatest stories aren't always the ones on screen. Sometimes they're the ones we quietly choose to live.